Alright, hello, this is Tony Dos Santos. I'm doing another video because Miracle Hero deck has some questions people want to ask me about, namely card choices and whatnot. If you've seen it before, basically just an overhaul of the Miracle Hero deck I ran. You know, deck, extra deck, side deck. And yeah, some people asked me some questions and I figured why not make another video, answer some questions and pretty much go over the side deck some more, why I like this side deck for Adelaide meta. So let's get down to it. Alright, the first question was from Michael, Little Sav. He asked me what about Book of Moon and Deep Prison. To be honest, it's kind of sad for me not to run Book of Moon. I got the Super Rare Book of Moon recently and I'm not even using this deck. And it's actually one of my favourite spell cards. The reason I'm not using it is because I found that in this format, Book of Moon isn't all that's what it's cracked out to be. It doesn't really do much compared to the last format. I mean, maybe if it's like semi-limited I might run it, but regardlessly, I don't see it doing some big plays. A bit of a waste, you can't take advantage of it really. And for the Deep Prison, to be honest, I prefer Bottomless Trap Hole. Just because Bottomless Trap Hole is a faster trap card, more reactive, where Deep Prison, it's a slower, I find it to be. What else? Basically, yeah, it's basically the same argument you can have between Torrential Tribute and Mirror Force, where just give me a second. Yeah, it's better music. So basically, Deep Prison and Bottomless Trap Hole can be compared to Torrential Tribute and Mirror Force. Basically, both those two set of cards are both reactive and faster. And how am I trying to explain this? Basically, Bottomless Trap Hole is faster, it's reactive, it gets rid of the threat immediately. Where Deep Prison is a slower trap card, where they have to attack with it. Like, let's say they bring in Archlord Christia. If I had a Bottomless Trap Hole set, I am thanking the gods. If I have Deep Prison and they decide I'm going to be a complete dick, I'm not going to actually attack with it, which some players like to do. That's a problem. Also, you got cards like Master Hyperion. When they drop it, they blow up your Deep Prison. That's like, well, shit. But yeah, Bottomless Trap Hole would be like, oh well, shit. There goes Master Hyperion. Basically, that's my argument. Like, I'm not saying Deep Prison is bad. If you run Deep Prison, that's good. If you run Bottomless Trap Hole, that's good. It's basically my preference overall. My opinion is that I prefer running Bottomless Trap Hole to Deep Prison. What else we got? There's another question we got here. Yeah, I don't even get answered that many questions. Oh, here's another one. I had a question about why didn't I run more than one Super Poly in the main deck. Basically, Super Poly is, as I said before, it's a game-breaking card. It's an amazing card which can win you games if you play it correctly. But there is such a thing as too much of a good thing, where if you run, let's say, 2 Super Polys, then you're pushing it way too far. You basically, let's say you run two Super Polys against, let's say, a Dragoonity deck. Yeah, that's good, but that's Dragoonity. You're not going to do that against plants. You're not going to do that against Dark Lord. Obviously not Dark Lord. That sort of stuff. Basically, the cost of it and whatnot is just that it's too much to run more than one. One is tech. One is amazing. 2 main decks is like, this basically makes it unstable. The discard fodder is a bit too much. That's why it's considered a skill card. So basically, it's better to have one side for certain matchup. Like if you match up against in a mirror match, and they manage to bring out 2 E-heroes in their side of the field, that's a fantastic time to play Super Poly. Whereas, but then there'll be matchups where a second Super Poly does nothing really. So it's better to have just one main deck rather than maining 2, and then quite a lot of matches you just find yourself thinking, well, this Super Poly is not much of use to me, and I've already played one. I'm kind of low on cards, so I'm not going to play it. Also, Also, something about siding the mask change. To be honest, there's not much reason to actually side, like, have the mask change side in the first place. To be honest, mask change is a very, very cute trick. If I want to make this deck better, I wouldn't actually run mask change in the first place. I mean, sure, you can mask change Absolute Zero or Ice Edge to mask Hero Vapor. That's some nifty tricks, but regardless, it's not. It's a cute thing, and to side mask change, there's not much you can actually side it into. It's a bit of a weird question, but I figured I'd get onto that. Also, that's probably it for the questions. There were some other questions, but not really. Oh, here's another one. Something about the Hero Blast. I don't like Hero Blast, to be honest. In theory, it sounds pretty good. I've seen people run 2 main decks, but there have been times when it's like it's underwhelming, to be honest. I just didn't like it. I think I've explained this sometime before. Maybe it's just some other video that I didn't post up, but to be honest, like it's a nifty trick, but when you're facing other decks where it just doesn't work or nothing really happens from it, I mean, it's a nice trick overall, but it can be. I found myself early game having it and become a dead card early game. I don't like to have dead cards early game, especially as a reg deck as heroes. Not really good. But yeah, time to go over the side deck, go into greater detail about the whole thing. Just move this sexy card out of the way. So basically, I got 2 breakers in the side deck. The reason why I had 2 breakers in the side deck was because there has been an uprising of Macro Cosmos D-Fisher decks in the Adelaide meta, and for me, as a hero player, that's a problem. So basically, I sided these 2 because, hey, it adds on to the Mists and the Gemini Sparks. It basically means that my matchup against Cosmos is even easier. I mean, regardless of the fact that D-Fisher decks and Cosmo decks, basically D-Fisher and Cosmos adds to the inconsistency, where it gives you great power against the meta decks. But regardless, I just don't like to deal with a deck which removes from play my cards, because Miracle Fusion is a win condition. You'll basically remove my win condition. I can beat you down to a bunch of 19 attackers, but I don't like the fact that you're making my deck all wonky and shit. So basically these 2 D-breakers, they're amazing against Cosmos decks. They're also not too bad against Dragonides and Gravekeepers. Also decks that are back rate heavy, where, like TG. Where with TGs, it's a bit of a pain in the ass when they flip Roll the Crew. But hey, not Roll the Crew, Skill Drain. But what can you do? But I guess that would be pretty handy against Horn of the Phantom Beast. But our TG here is sudden die out, so most of this is just for Cosmos matchups, which is a pretty big threat to me, I reckon. 2D Crows, pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, like basically I threw these 3 in for Dark World. Was a bit too much. Basically 2 is good for certain matchups, but I don't really need to explain it because everyone cites 2D Crows, so I don't know why I went to that. You got 2 Doom Caliber Knights. Basically, they're pretty amazing. They're pretty nice. Basically, this deck doesn't really have effects that activate. You got Absolute Zero, you got Stratos, which should be your first turn move regardlessly, unless you know you have to do Summon the King first. It's also your... yeah, I mean, I've got this Ice Edge, Stratos, and Absolute Zero as far as I'm concerned, really. You got, like, Nerve Master, which is pretty uncommon, but regardless, you got Neos Alias, you got, what else? Well, you got Effect Veiler, but certain matchups this will be better anyway. It's a card you have to play around with, but it hurts your opponent more than it actually hurts you. But even it doesn't really hurt you that much, regardless. It will hurt the plant matchups. It'll hurt what do you call it? The agent matchups. Pretty much, essentially, this slows down the pace of the faster decks, which this deck has problems with. This deck has problems with decks that can outpace it, like plants, agents, Dark World, and this deck helps you in those matchups. It slows down to your pacing, so hopefully you can eventually outplay your opponent eventually. I mean, it hurts when you bring this out first turn and they go, well, there goes my Earth, which I need to bring out for Venus, or this hurts my Venus play. Overall, it's fantastic against a lot of decks, and during tournaments, I tend to find myself siding these in quite a bit. Overall, amazing card. So you got 2 Mystical Space Typhoons. I don't main Mystical Space Typhoons. I'm actually considering siding the Heavy Storm thanks to Christian. Basically, they're only good for like Cosmos decks. I actually don't really see myself siding in these much. I've sided these in against TG once, and I think a deck that was running Royal Decree, but even then that was a bit too much. Overall, it was just for the fact that what do you call it? Just certain matchups this was handy, but I didn't really side this in. But it's still a must to have, you know, because you're up against Cosmos decks, you don't have these sided in. Well, shit. And also like decks like yeah, I side these in against Dark Lord actually, just because I don't like the field card. It opens up interesting plays, especially with Levia the Sea Dragon. I don't like that going off. I've run Dark Lord a bit. I've seen the crazy shit it can do. It's just painful. Super Poly, as I said earlier, the second one is pretty good in the side deck against certain matchups, especially rogue decks, as I found. So definitely, I reckon it's pretty staple in a hero deck to side second one, because although it's not good to have 2 main decked, against certain matchups, it's amazing to side into the second Poly. Especially against that Stardust Dragon, that guy can fuck off. And you got the 2 Mind Crushers, you know, standard stuff really. Let's say agent decks, once again, I know I go to agents all the time, TGs. Pretty much, it's an amazing card, this format, so that's why I got 2 there. Skill Drain, I absolutely love this card in the hero decks. Basically, you're not very affected by it, like, first thing you're going to summon Stratos, and then you're going to set this, well, that's all really. You're Shining, you're going to get the effect off regardless, so you just don't have the attack boost, but hey, 26 attack, that's going to run pretty much everything, bar none. Beast King Barbaros, that little douchebag. And also, yeah, I mean, what, A-list Neos isn't going to go off? Well, it's going to affect anyway. Basically, it hurts a lot of decks. A lot of decks in the tournaments you go to. I've won games pretty much outright with this card. I had this deck I played against, what was it? Basically, it was like 37 monsters, including magical merchants, 3 spells. I flipped this, he scooped. It was just an amazing card. And also your debunks, for obvious reasons. Stops your Dark World, stops your plants. I love playing this against plant decks. Stops your... what else you got? Can't even remember anymore, I'm tired. But regardlessly, this is quite an amazing card in the Adelaide meta. And I'm sure most other metas. But it really depends if your side deck can actually fit it in. I wouldn't say throw this into every deck possible. But it's just an amazing card I found. I've only been running heroes at the moment, and this card's pretty easy to run. I haven't taken this out. I've actually loved this card. I've always found myself having the hardest times against the pro players that run their plant decks and whatnot. And this really helps me out against those matchups. Basically, I was going to say, I can't remember exactly what used to be in my old side deck, but there was stuff I can't remember, to be honest. It wasn't particularly that good. The only thing I don't like is that I can't actually side deck Royal Decree, like the space is too tight. And to be honest, that was it, like the space was too tight. I have like 8 traps main decked, didn't really like the idea. Cyber Dragons also used to be part of the side deck, but eventually got to a point I realized the 21 attack is not really needed. Funny King doesn't hurt me as much as I thought it would, and the fact that since no one actually runs machines, there was no point really to have Chimeritic Overdragon. I mean, honestly, no one ran it. I speak to the community, no one actually runs the deck, so I was pretty happy. Alright, that's about it. If you have any questions, leave some feedback, opinions, whatever, and thank you for watching the video. See ya.